Hello, everybody. Chris Smartage, Brotherhood of Light Show, current YouTube channel. This week, we're going to have a show on Richie Blackmore, legendary guitar player. So let's get on with screen share. Here we go. Screen share right now. Okay, and we're going to get the laser pointer going next. Laser pointer. Okay, here we go. So this is a show this week. Richie Blackmore, legendary guitar player for Deep Purple and Rainbow. And there's Richie with Rainbow on the left, and there he is playing probably with Rainbow also. So we're going to get to the complete catalog of Rainbow and Deep Purple with Richie playing. And we're going to start with the early Deep Purple. So here we go. So Shades of Deep Purple is our first album, released in 1968. And they've got a hit song called Hush. And Hush was a big hit in the States. And if you hear the song, it has wolves barking, and then you hear this incredible guitar sound from Richie Blackmore, and then this chugging keyboard by John Lord. And it's just incredible. They play it all the time in these movies. Anytime they want to portray kind of the scene of the late 60s or early 70s, you'll hear Hush in a lot of these current films. Let's see the next shot. So they had a big hit in the United States, but I'm going to get to this Jimi Hendrix first. So Jimi Hendrix put out an album in 1967, and Richie Blackmore really dug it. He listened to it. He really liked the way Hendrix laid out the songs and the guitar playing. And then Deep Purple themselves listened to Vanilla Fudge, and they really liked the way they had arranged their music. So they arranged their stuff like Vanilla Fudge with the loud Hammond B style organ guitar and the loud, large sounding drums. So that's what they did. And so they played the show at the Forum with Cream, and they were just really incredible that night. They just blew Cream away. And so they finished those shows and they were yanked off that tour because they were just so good. So anyway, let's go to the next shot. Here we go. So that band was around the Mark I era of Deep Purple. So Richie Blackmore heard Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, different bands, and decided to go a lot heavier, take a heavier approach. He wanted a louder, wilder singer. So he ended up hiring Ian Gillan and Roger Glover, the bass player, and reformed Deep Purple with a new singer. And as you can see, he's a young guy. These pictures. John Lord is the keyboard player, and Ian Pace was the drummer still. And so they ended up creating a much wilder sound because Ian Gillan was this crazy screaming singer, and he could also sing the hard rock parts. So next they record this album, In Rock. And In Rock is a straight up hard rock album. It's just fantastic. It's known to be one of the classics and one of the originators of the hard rock, hard driving sound. Then they produced Fireball in 71, and then Machine Head in 1972. These three records are kind of the Mark II lineup's shining records. And they're just really a hard driving band at this point. And so I had heard Child in Time off of In Rock on FM radio, and I heard Strange Kind of Woman off of Fireball. I had not heard Machine Head yet in 72. So I was out camping out Big Sur around the campfire, the communal campfire, and started talking music. I mentioned I'd seen Led Zeppelin and I'd seen Black Sabbath and Johnny Winter and a bunch of bands. And this guy said, well, if you like these hard rock bands, go see Deep Purple next week at Winterland. They're really great. So me and my friends went to the show, and here's the actual poster of the show: Bull Angus, Black Oak, Arkansas, Deep Purple, and Malo. Now, Malo is Carlos Santana's brother, George Santana's band out of San Francisco, and Bill Graham just threw him on the bill just to kind of do a favor, but they're not really the headliner. Deep Purple was the headliner. So the situation with Deep Purple is they got these 3 albums out, and that 3rd album, Machine Head, was just really the crescendo of the Mark II lineup, where they had all these great songs and all this great arrangement, and they were just coming together at that point as recording artists and as a band, and they were basically on fire. So Richie really surrounded himself with just the best musicians. I mean, these guys were all incredible players. So that's the first factor about Deep Purple. The second factor is Richie himself is an athlete. He was a football player. So he was in incredible shape. And for you that don't know, football in England is soccer in America. So he was an English football player. Anyway, so he was in great condition and really young. And so he ended up, they also had recorded these 3 records, and they'd been touring nonstop. So they played like 250 shows. So they were like just playing in their front room. They were just so fluid at the live show. And he was like really into showboating at that point, but it wasn't posing. Like when I saw Black Oak, Arkansas, they were like not great players, and they were more or less posing with their guitars and stuff. And the singer was just kind of cliche. I didn't really care for them. So anyway, Purple hits the stage. They end up, Roger Glover's got this bass line, and he's doing Highway Star, if you know it. It's the beginning, and then over here, Gillan has this microphone with these 3 prongs, and he takes the microphone on the edge of the stage, he throws it at the audience, and then he puts his foot on this prong that's sticking up, and he just pushes it back, and it flies back in his hand, and they break into Highway Star, the riff, guitar, and the vocals. And the drummer and bass player are like a freight train, and then the keyboard and guitar player can just lay down anything on top of that, along with this crazy vocalist. It can be these amazing high-pitched screams on key. And but Blackmore is just jumping around on his knees. He's throwing the guitar up. He's catching it, and and hitting the note right on. I mean, it's like an acrobatic guitar player almost. And then he ends up. I talked to other people that saw this tour, and including the drummer of Metallica and my friend in LA, and said it was the same thing. It was just this amazing assault with Blackmore, just tossing that guitar about and just playing, like shredding on it. So the result of that is they end up like 8 weeks after I saw them, or 6 weeks after I saw them, they end up playing in Japan and recording a live album called Made in Japan. It's probably the greatest hard rock live album ever, I think. And they just are completely on fire during the recording. And that's what they were like when I saw them. They were so impressive. I'd seen 50 bands by the time I was a senior in high school. This was like a week before I graduated. The following week, I saw the Rolling Stones with Stevie Wonder. I saw Jethro Tull a week after that. But Purple just blew everybody away. They were just so amazing. And if you hear this record, all the songs on it are the show I saw. Highway Star. It was either Maybe I'm a Leo or Smoke on the Water. And it was Strange Kind of Woman. Oh no, and then it was Child in Time, and then Lazy, and then Space Truck, and this massive long version of that song. I mean, they were just incredible. They just played a full 2 hours, and it was awesome. So now they've released another record called Who Do We Think We Are? And it had a hit in Moon from Tokyo. And then also in 73, Smoke on the Water from both records, the live one and Machine Head, was like top hard rock song on the charts. I mean, it was just everywhere. It was like top 10 a year. Despite of that, they end up breaking up. Ian Gillan and Roger Glover leave the Mark II, and they form the Mark III lineup with David Coverdale on vocals, and Glenn Hughes on bass and backup vocals. And then they've got the nucleus of Richie Blackmore, John Lord, and Ian Pace still there. And so they released these two records, Burn and Stormbringer. And amazingly enough, the #1 hard rock band at the time releases these two records with a new lineup, new singers, and end up almost being as successful as they were with the Mark II lineup, the Mark III. So it was pretty amazing. But they did the legendary concert in '74 first of all, there's Richie with his stage annex, kneeling, destroying guitars, throwing them off the stage, smashing them against the amplifiers, feeding them back, destroying them. I mean, he was just a wild man, and just a pleasure to watch. So the next concert they end up playing is California Jam in 1974, and it's got 350,000 people, and they come on at nighttime, and Richie he's got ABC filming it. It's on television, and Richie, you can see the camera shooting him in the top right corner, and then also on this bottom right, it's a huge camera. And so he attacks the camera with his guitar, smashes the shade thing around the lens, and then takes his guitar and jams it straight into the lens. Then he turns around, gets another guitar, and decides to blow up his amplifier, and they put gasoline and gunpowder in it, and it explodes, and it almost blows him off the stage. It blows the glasses off the drummer and blows a hole in the stage, but he continues to play and then destroys the guitar afterwards. It's a legendary performance, and you can get it on DVD, and there it is, Deep Purple, California Jam, April 1974, at Ontario Speedway. So check that out. It's really great. So now, this is a pattern all of a sudden. He's had that Coverdale lineup for 2.5 years, and he meets Ronnie James Dio, singer of Elf, their opening act. And he steals Ronnie James Dio and takes Elf and records the album, Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, his Purple album. And then they put together a giant stage show, and they go on the road. And he ends up keeping one member of Elf and putting together this, we call it the Rising Band. Jimmy Bain on bass, Richie Blackmore guitar, Tony Carey on keyboards, synthesizers, Ronnie James Dio on vocals, and Cozy Powell on drums, which is like a super group. And they were truly amazing. Let's check this out. So here is the giant rainbow stage with this huge lighting rig that changes all colors and chases colors. Really incredible. And then there's Richie with his rock and roll attitude. And so Rainbow is this darker, kind of medieval sounding rock band, and just takes a turn into that world. So then they released this album, Rising. It is in the middle of the page. And you can see here is the rainbow and the colors in it, and the stage set he's got, and he tours around the world with this thing. And it's really incredible. But there is some, the technology was tough in those days to keep something like that working, but they managed to, and this Rising Band is great, and here they are. So you got Cozy Powell, Richie Blackmore, Ronnie James Dio, you got Tony Carey, and Jimmy Bain, and there's Ronnie and Richie, and there's Ronnie on the right playing there, young Ronnie James Dio. So the guy has the most incredible, powerful voice, and this was kind of a dark, medieval, heavy rock. This band was known for its power metal or progressive metal, they call it. The kind of godfathers of that. And then here they are again. And then they release another record. Well, they released this live album, Rainbow on Stage, with this rainbow in the right-hand corner and Richie's picture on the left. So then in 78, they released Long Live Rock and Roll, which is this Brown album, but they have two member changes. They have Bob Deasley on bass and David Stone on keyboard. Now, this Munich 77 DVD here is an awesome history. You got to grab this one. It's like 2.5 hours long of Rainbow's performance in Germany. And it's a pro shot, and it's just totally amazing. And it's a record of Richie Blackmore's Rainbow with Dio, which is great. And you've got to have it if you're a fan. It's really good. And now this picture on the right here is Richie with the flash bulb that kind of lit him up. My friend Dale Roberts took that shot, and we went to the show at Winterland and saw Rainbow play Long Live Rock and Roll with REO Speedwagon, and it was just a sin that I don't know why they were on the bill together, but anyway, Rainbow played a good show, and Richie destroyed the guitar, and it was fantastic. And here's some shots from that show. There's like Richie on the left there. That's an actual show I saw. And then that's Ronnie in the middle with the red shirt. That's from that particular night. And then this is another shot from the tour with Beasley on bass back there. And then here is Richie from Winterland. There's 6 shots that I got from the internet, which are really cool to have the shots when I was there. And then we also have Beasley playing with Richie on another shot from another show. I don't know where that's from. But once again, at this point, and Dio's been around for 3 years, and Richie decides to, they break up and they get put together a new Rainbow. And this is the Down to Earth album. And this lineup is still got Cozy Powell in it. Graham Bonnet, the guy with short hair, is the singer. They get Don Aries on keyboard, and he played with Ozzy. And then Roger Glover, they bring him back from Mark II, Deep Purple, and Cozy Powell on drums. So that's the band. And they were together for about a year. And their last show was at the Monsters of Rock at Downingtown, 1980. And here's the poster from it right here. Judas Priest, Scorpions, April Wine, Saxon, and Riot. And this black album cover here is the album cover from this thing you can get. And it's got the full audio, and it also has 2/3 of the show on DVD. Pro shot. And there's Richie on stage right there, the yellow stage. So it's a great show, and especially first 3 or 4 songs are really good on it. They play some older Rainbow stuff, and then they play some newer stuff from Down to Earth. But once again, Bonnet didn't fit in. He was a pop singer, and he just wasn't really a metal guy, although he's turned into that since then. And so he moved on, and then they got another singer. So now here's the 3 singers. You got Ronnie James Dio on the left. You got Joe Lynn Turner and Graham Bonnet. Now, so Joe Lynn Turner now takes over vocals, and he records on Difficult to Cure record. There it is in the center. And they tour for a year on that in 81. And then in 82, they record Straight Between the Eyes, which is a more heavy, hard driving record, and probably my favorite with Joe on it. And they've got these big eyeballs that set on tour with this high powered lights that shoot out of them. So once they've got a pretty cool stage set up again, there's another shot of Richie playing on stage with the massive eyeballs, and then there's Joe Lynn Turner singing. And so he had quite a stage production at this point for 1982, and they toured all over with it. Did a lot of shows that year. So now 1983, they released Bent Out of Shape, and then Richie, at the end of the year, decides to go back on tour, back and record an album, go on tour with Deep Purple Mark II lineup, the classic. So they released Final Vinyl, which is that shot of Richie sitting in the arena up there, the Black Album, and Bent Out of Shape. I went and saw the tour, and it was really a bummer. They played with Dokken and Blue Oyster Cult. For some reason, Dokken didn't play it. Rainbow went on really early, like 7:30, and by 8:30 they were over. And Joe Lynn Turner said he was pissed off that their name wasn't on the ticket. It might have been a production thing, or they couldn't set up their lights. I don't know what the deal was, but they were not happy. And so I left this show at 8:30 and expecting a full night of rock and roll. And as I walked out, there was like 50 to 100 people that were coming in. And they said, "Well, what are you guys doing?" And I said, "Well, it's over." What do you mean? Rainbow's over. And they were like, "What?" They all came to see Rainbow, and they missed them because they came on early. It was, and played a short set. It was really a bummer. But the next year they made up for it by getting back together. Deep Purple recording the album Perfect Strangers and going on tour. And with the classic lineup, Ian Gillan, Roger Glover, John Lord, Ian Pace. And they did not disappoint. They played a 2.5-hour set. They played all the old Mark II Deep Purple and a bunch of new stuff off of Perfect Strangers. And then 2 years later, they recorded House of Blue Lights, this other record, which is up there. And they did another tour. My friend went and saw it, so it was really good. I didn't get to go to that one. So they were back together for about 4 years, 3.5, 4 years. And then once again, Ian Gillan left. Joe Lynn Turner came back, and they recorded this Slaves and Master, which is this blue record album right here. And it's kind of like a Rainbow album. It's like really light, deep purple. I don't think it was really a great Deep Purple record as Deep Purple records go. So that lasted. They did a tour about a year, and then they did this final record with Ian Gillan, and it's called The Battle Rages On. And basically, they were battling at that point. And Richie made about 2/3 of the tour and then left. And he was never to play in Deep Purple again. And they got a new guitar player, and they went one way and he went the other. And so basically that ended the Deep Purple reunion years. And so here's Richie, the rock star, great player, one of my favorite guitar players of all time. Next to Jimi Hendrix, I mean, he's the next best. And as far as I'm concerned, he's also an originator. And so in 1997, excuse me, he puts another Rainbow back together, and he releases The Stranger in Us All, which is that album on the right. He's got Doogie White on vocals and a whole new band, and they do a tour, and it's pretty good. I like the record. There's some really good songs on it. And they released this DVD right here from Rock Palace. And you can get it. It's pretty good. It's kind of like the last, Rainbow tour from the 90s. And so I recommend both those record and that DVD if you're into it. And Richie has been married to Candace Knight for quite a few years at this point, and he ends up forming a band with her. It's called Blackmore's Nights. They've got a bunch of releases out, and it's kind of more of a old English or minstrel type traditional music, and they end up playing a lot of these really cool boutique venues, theaters in the East Coast, and then they go and play in Europe, and they play in some castles. And so that's what he's doing, and he loves it. And she's a really great singer, and it's a completely different type of music. It's not the heavy rock with the Fender like the Rainbow or Purple. But in 2016, 17, and 18. He gets back together with the singer Ronnie Romero, puts together a band, and they go on tour. They do like 4 or 5 shows a year in Europe and in Russia. And there's some really good stuff on YouTube on these tours that you can see. And the 2018 tour is pretty good. And some of the shows they did in Birmingham, England were really good too. So check them out. They're definitely worth seeing on YouTube as far as that goes. And let's see. So, the mouse interesting. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We'll have to check out what Richie Blackmore ends up doing in the near future, but you never know with him. He's kind of mysterious guy. And trying to get to stop. Okay, stop screen share. There we go. And I'm back. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe if you feel like it. I cover a lot of these heavy rock bands from the late 60s and 70s. It's pretty much where I focus my shows on. And I also cover a bunch of light show stuff because that's what I do for a living. I do psychedelic light shows for rock bands. Anyway, so signing off, check it out, and I hope you guys enjoyed the show.